Primetime local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime Local News. A spike in cases of COVID-19 in Saskatchewan today. 60 new cases are being reported. 48 of those are in Hutterite colonies in the southwest and central regions. There is only one new case in the north region, which includes the Lloydminster area. 190 cases are considered active. 13 people are in hospital, including 3 in intensive care. A total of 825 people have recovered. Council received their latest budget update on Monday, but it's still too early to tell the full impact COVID-19 has had on the city. Eric Bay reports.
Budgets have been altered everywhere because of COVID-19, and the city of Lloydminster is no different. While revenue is down for the city, spending is not as high as in years past, with operating costs lowered because of the shutdown of facilities like the Service Sports Centre.
There's been an impact to the revenue line, but it has been an impact to the expense line. And to be crystal clear, I can't give you a number today as to where we're at, but I know administration's working through that right now with all the different departments to ensure that we have that captured.
A clearer image of the impact of COVID on the city's expenses will be known after September, when the city has a better idea of the total costs of multiple summer construction projects.
That moves us quite a bit further into projects being completed. We should be seeing a lot of road construction projects hopefully getting close to being done or done, and other projects that way. So as well as taxes continue to come in on a daily basis. So it will give us a much better idea by the third quarter exactly where COVID has impacted us.
Moving the deadline to pay property taxes to November this year has also left the city in limbo, unsure of when money will be collected. But the mayor says many residents have already begun to pay their taxes.
The city administration and the finance team especially has done a great job trying to balance to ensure that we don't have to go into that line of credit we talked about that was increased to $25 million. It has balanced, and this was the concern council had by moving the tax date, that it would have implications. And so far, I would like to say we've been lucky, and touch wood, we should be able to hopefully make it through from what I've seen.
There are currently 117 ongoing projects in the city. Eric Bay, Primetime Local News.
The Alberta government recently announced that students in Alberta will be going back to school. Connor Chan speaks with MLA Garth Rosewell about how the decision was made and what students can expect this fall.
Joining me today is Garth Rosewell, the MLA for Vermilion, Lloydminster, Wainwright. Garth, first off, thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, no problem. It's information that needs to get out there, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and that information in particular is the announcement of schools officially being reopened in Alberta, so mainly in the Vermilion, Wainwright areas. So just talk about the process of how that decision came about.
Well, I'm talking to the minister, like she went and consulted with the school boards and the ATA and all the players that were involved in this, and the goal was to try to be open. And there was 3 scenarios that were potential options, and what we settled on was the least restrictive one, which is scenario 1, which is essentially operations as per normal with some health measures and sanitation measures in order to operate safely.
Why was scenario 1 the best option for the province?
Well, I think Alberta has done a really good job of containing the pandemic, flattening the curve, and just managing the pandemic overall. Like Albertans, stuck to the suggestions of the chief medical health officer, and we had pretty good numbers. Part of it, where the NHL playoffs are coming to town. I think all of those are benefits of how well Albertans stuck to the rules and try to flatten the curve on this pandemic.
Is there any plan in place for students when they do go back? For some that, if they do contract the virus, what's the plan in place for those students?
Well, I think we'll just follow what the chief medical officer tells us. There's sanitation at the door. There's cleaning procedures. There's questionnaires that people have to answer in order to be allowed to come into the school on a daily basis. So we're going to track that, and if a person does get, if someone does come down with the pandemic, I imagine there's going to be some isolation or that type of thing that'll come on, but we'll rely on the chief medical officer to dictate as to how we're going to manage that.
One of the things that was said by the education minister was that the physical distancing measures are up to the school divisions themselves. So in those Vermilion, Wainwright areas, have you had a chance to discuss with those school divisions and what they are possibly going to do when they open?
I've talked, actually, I was talking to the school divisions, the ones I could connect with this morning. And the main thing that came up right now is PPE and making sure they got it and where they can source it from and that type of stuff. But the one of the ones that I did talk to said they had fairly detailed explanations as to what they needed to do. So they were very, they said, we got all the details we need here, and operate, and they'll make up their own plans as to how they want to manage the physical distancing and have the cohorts for the kids and that type of stuff. So we're leaving it up to their good management, which we in Vermilion, Lloydminster, Wainwright, we have good school boards that know how to manage things.
I guess I just want to backtrack a little bit, Garth. I know this decision was, it took a couple months to finally get made, but during that time, have you heard from teachers before that about, were they concerned at all about possibly the way that they're going to teach next year, I guess?
Yeah, like I've talked to a number of teachers, and it's just such a, when they, even last spring, when we essentially closed the schools, they were, well, how do we manage this? What do we do, right? And they did great work. They did good work. Even the bus drivers were driving homework out to kids that didn't have effective internet, and then they wound up taking their personal cars in the end. So they did a good job there, and I think they were waiting for direction from us. They've got it now. The school boards seem to have a feel for it, and they'll be working with their teachers to get a plan. And teachers are professionals; they'll make it work, and I have full confidence that they'll do a great job.
And there has been talks, there about the possibility of a second wave. Is the province of Alberta prepared for that scenario if it does happen?
I think so. Like again, it's the chief medical officer that helps us with that, and we'll just have to follow her direction. It's it's like I'm assuming we're prepared, and we'll have to rely on the experts to help us through that process.
And lastly, Garth, just before we wrap things up, what's one thing that you could say to parents that may have a little bit of worry when they send their kids back to school in those Alberta cities and towns?
Well, I would hope that there's been a lot of thought, a lot of conversations has gone into this, where we believe we can do it safely. If problems come up, we'll be made aware of them, and we'll let the professionals help us get through the process and do the right thing. So kids learn best when they're in school, and that's why we want to work so hard to get them in there. I think it's just a better place to get the job done.
Absolutely. Well, Garth, I really appreciate your time, and thanks very much for joining us.
After only 2 weeks of play, the U18 Northwest Prairie Pirates have seen all the highs and lows of baseball. After starting the season 0-3, the Prairie Pirates have won 3 of their last 4. Our Evan Kenny reports.
While the Prairie Pirates warmed up for practice last night, the warm-up for the season is far past over. Only 2 weeks and 7 games into the season, and the Pirates have seen it all.
Yeah, the amount of confidence they're playing with, and like you said, the momentum is huge, so I don't see any negative in the future, to be honest.
The Pirates went from 10-0, 10-8, and 10-1 losses to 7-0 and 12-8 wins this past weekend.
We knew we were the better team, and we showed it at the plate. Every at-bat, we'd see our bad at-bats were 4 pitches long. So we were seeing a lot of pitches. We forced their good pitchers off the mound, and that's why we were able to be successful.
Included in the offensive outpour is Prairie Pirates second baseman Ellis King. King went 4 for 7 on Sunday alone with an on-base percentage of .714.
I'd say we scored a lot of runs. We were putting the ball in play, and we were scoring runners when it counted. I think I was seeing the ball pretty well. I think I was playing well defensively. I didn't make many errors, and that's about it.
The Pirates started their hot streak splitting a back-to-back with the Sask 5 Giants. The Giants will also be their next test. Pirates bench boss Dan Keck says if the team's confidence continues, so will the winning.
I don't think it matters who they throw at us, though. I think we got the confidence right now and the momentum, so like I said, I'm just positive about the future.
The Sask 5 Giants currently sit with a record of 2-3 with wins coming against the Prairie Pirates and the Diamondbacks. Evan Kenny, Primetime Local Sports.
Now our Connor Chan will take a look at your weather forecast.
All right, thanks very much, Jasmine. Taking a look at current temperatures, still once again, still sitting at 25 degrees right now. 25 also out in Edmonton. A little cooler as we get to Jasper, sitting at 18 degrees. 22 in both Rocky Mountain House and in Red Deer, Athabasca, and Cold Lake. Right now sitting at 24 degrees. Whitecourt sitting at 23 right now. As we move over into the Saskatchewan areas right now, very warm in Saskatoon and over the 30-degree hump there at 31. 29 in North Battleford and Melford. 28 for Prince Albert and 22 degrees out in Meadow Lake. Now here's what we see in the northern areas of Alberta and Saskatchewan. 23 degrees for La Loche and in Buffalo Narrows. 27 for La Ronge and 26 degrees out in Flin Flon right now, along with South End as well. 22 in Wollaston Lake, 21 for Stony Rapids, and 23 for Uranium City. So they're around average of where we are right now. But in the northern Alberta areas, it's getting a little cooler, mostly out in the Fort McMurray area, sitting at 18 right now. 20 degrees in Slave Lake, with 21 out in Grand Prairie and 22 degrees out in High Level, with Peace River sitting at a 23-degree mark right now. Now, as we get to the southern areas, that's much warmer than what we are experiencing here, just by a little bit, with over a few degrees there. 32 in Lethbridge, 33 in Medicine Hat right now. Calgary is a little bit cooler than Medicine Hat, just 10 degrees right now. Banff sitting at 28, Coronation with 24 degrees right now. And as we move over into southern Saskatchewan, a couple places with over the 30-degree mark there in Swift Current at 31 and Moose Jaw and Kindersley both at 30 right now. Regina just shy of that, sitting at 29, and Yorkton at 27, while Estevan sits at 28. Now here's what we're seeing right now, across the country. 25 out in Winnipeg, mostly cloud coverage and a bit of sun there. 25 in Quebec City with all cloud coverage. Same in Toronto with 23. Halifax and St. John's both sitting at 22 and 26 degrees. As we look over into further west, Vancouver, compared to yesterday, they are now seeing some cloud coverage with a high of 22 degrees. Yellowknife and Whitehorse up north in the Yukon territories there, sitting with some showers at 18 degrees and 14 right now. Edmonton, I mentioned 25 right now as well, with mostly cloud coverage and a bit of sun. So here's what we could see for tomorrow. 25 degrees, kind of around the same mark as where we are right now, but the only difference is we could see some showers coming in our way, maybe up to close to 3 millimeters of rain expected for tomorrow. But 25 will be the number for mostly around this region here in the Vermilion, Marwayne, Wainwright areas. A little bit cooler out in Edmonton at 23, 24 for Vegreville tomorrow, along with Bonnyville and Cold Lake. Lac La Biche also sitting at 23. Provost is sitting at 28 tomorrow, with Macklin sitting at 29, and North Battleford continues to have some warm temperatures with that high of 31 degrees for tomorrow. So here's what we see for the next 7 days. 22 on Friday with that 55% chance of some showers. We could get some more showers for Saturday as well. Even though it's at 40, there is still the possibility there, that high of 18 degrees. 23 on Sunday with mostly clear skies there and a bit of cloud coverage. And all clear skies for Monday with that high of 26. Then we warm up to close to 30. We just come shy of 30 degrees on Tuesday with that high of 29, and 27 degrees on Wednesday to wrap up the 7-day forecast. 23 degrees is our high average and 11 is our low average. Let's look at your 7-day forecast. We'll have more primetime local news after this.
I'm joined here with Dean Segberg, and he is the executive chair of Lloydminster Minor Hockey. Now, with the limits on how many people can gather, will teams look different this next year compared to a normal season?
It's up in the air. We don't know exactly. We know that Hockey Canada does have a certain mandated number of players they would like on a team on a given year. Next year being, again, I hate to use the term uncertain times, but we don't know exactly what it's going to look like going into next season. we base our budgets with LMHA to have a certain amount of teams. However, if they come back and they say that you are going to have, because of social distancing, because of all the different return to play procedures, we might have to look at having smaller size teams, which would mean more teams, which would mean potentially less ice time as well, because we are limited as to how much ice we can utilize from the city. So we don't know. We're planning. We have contingencies for both sets of circumstances as it is a regular season. So it's up in the air. You're going to hear me say that phrase a lot. It's up in the air, but it's literally what it is.
And just regarding, teams, and when teams are going out for their seasons and their leagues and everything, will the travel plans change and maybe they won't be traveling as much throughout the season?
As of June 30th, when Hockey Alberta sent out their return to play procedures, that was one of the things that was up in the air. That was literally the very last thing they said is they said that league play can and probably will be a major challenge. It depends lots on the Alberta government and what phase we are in, if we're moving ahead, how it looks like, or if we have to take a step back, because of hockey falls right in line with return to school. So, and schools are a giant petri dish. So when these kids go back to school, then they go to hockey, we might roll it back then. We don't know. But yeah, definitely leagues. It's something that in a lot of league meetings they are discussing. What's the league going to look like? Is there going to be travel? And if there is travel, how far out do you do it? So again, it's a fluid situation at this point.
And do you guys know at all what regulations you're going to have regarding if players will have to dress before they get to the arena?
Nothing official, but I would be I would be pretty confident to say that probably, yeah, like in the return to play process, players typically would be wearing a mask coming to the arena. So I'm assuming, reading between the lines, it'd be best to dress at home, come to the arena, social distance in the dressing room. So maybe typically we would have one team in one dressing room. We might have to have that team in two dressing rooms now, 6 feet apart. Some arenas, it works out great for us at the service center. Those are fairly large rooms. It works out. The Archie Miller is a little harder, obviously, but a smaller arena. And then once they're on the ice, they would take the masks off. However, coaches, from what I read, coaches on the bench in the room at all times would have a mask on.
And will that also affect parents and family or who are watching the games as well?
Where it's possible in the return to play policy, spectators, if we can keep them to 100 people, social distancing. Some of our arenas, that'll be fairly easy to do. 100 people, you don't have to social distance if you're part of the same family unit. However, masks, probably indoor spaces, will be mandatory. Some of our smaller arenas, that could be a very strong challenge. But and what we're hoping is they're going to probably make it up to each association to police ourselves. So the comment's been made a bunch of times that if you are having 100 people in a room, who wants to go up to that grandpa or grandma that's number 101 or number 102 and say, you have to leave the arena? I think as long as we're smart and we do things the right way, and if you have a family of 6, maybe trying to limit how many young kids are at the arena as well. So it's going to be tricky, and there's going to be a lot of challenges. But I think if people are smart, we will have a fairly normal return to play.
And now with the new season not far along, how is the tryout procedures looking so far?
We are planning to have similar to how we've had. We budgeted, and we're planning to have it similar to previous seasons, where we're going to have our on-ice sessions, of course. Typically, we try to keep parents as far away from the kids as possible during that day, because for some people it's very stressful. How it's actually going to look and be laid out, is it going to be over the course of 2 weekends, over the course of 3 weekends? We don't know. Again, it could change because of whatever the Alberta government says, but it should be very similar to how we've done it the last couple of seasons.
With summer camps coming up quickly, what are some of the changes people will see regarding those?
Summer camps, typically, Jasmine, summer camps are run from a third party. So we as a minor hockey association don't have a lot of say on that. That'd be the crash hockey, IHD, crooked hockey. They have their own return to play policies and how they maintain their social distance. But anything that we have in August, which is again put on by Hockey Alberta that we are part of, there will be a whole mandate of social distancing, how many kids can be on the ice at one time, coming dressed to the arena. So we have seen that. I can't speak for how the private hockey summer schools are going. I just know that I have some friends that are in it, and they are doing a relatively good job at social distancing and keeping the players and the parents safe.
And if anyone is looking for information on what any more that they might be looking for and how the next season will work, should they go to your website and your Facebook page?
Absolutely. You can always go to Lloydminster Minor Hockey on Facebook or the website. Typically, if we get a bulletin from Hockey Alberta, typically we put it up within 10, 20 minutes. And with Hockey Alberta being on Twitter and of course our Twitter account too at Lloydminster Minor Hockey, we do have pretty fast access. And a lot of times parents know stuff before it even comes out through us. It's funny, hockey parents, they really watch that Twitter account quick and they'll tell us, and a lot of times they catch us off guard before we actually get the full-on press release. They're hearing snippets from other people. So yeah, social media is the easiest way for us to get our information out.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dean.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery and Furniture House, downtown Lloydminster.
Welcome back. When the Columbia Icefield crash happened over the weekend, specially trained teams from Edmonton's trauma centers jumped into action. Trauma cases can be complicated, and as Global Sulingo found out, the COVID-19 pandemic has made things even more challenging.
When an incident like the Columbia Icefield's tragedy happens, it sets a life-saving machine in motion. First responders collect precious information to send to trauma centers at the University and Royal Alexandra hospitals.
We don't want to be blindsided ever. We want to have an idea of what our plan is when the patients come in.
Okay. What's your ETA?
Dr. Damien Peyton-Gay, seen here in this AHS video, is a trauma surgeon and intensive care specialist. His team at the Royal Alex includes emergency doctors, surgeons, nurses, and respiratory therapists. As patients arrived from the Jasper crash last weekend, the team triaged as quickly as possible.
Determine exactly what their injuries are and how stable they are and what the speed of their response needs to be.
Complicating things was COVID-19. Since patients couldn't answer questions about symptoms and testing isn't immediate, all were treated as though they were infected.
Making sure we're very clear about which providers need to be in the room and which ones do not need to be in the room, and making sure that patients are kept in their own space.
The teams run simulations like this at least once a month and more often during the pandemic. Edmonton's 2 trauma centers see between 3,000 and 4,000 patients per month. Most come from collisions on the highway or in ATVs. Summer is the trauma team's busiest season.
It's tough to watch people out for a good time and then winding up in our emergency rooms or trauma wards with injuries.
It's also hard to lose a patient. Dr. Peyton-Gay says for staff, the comfort comes from knowing they did all they could and taking pride in the ones who survived the impossible.
You can meet somebody with an injury to the heart who needs immediate surgery that sometimes we even begin in the emergency department before we even get to the operating room. And you can see that person leave the hospital a couple of weeks later, which is an amazing feeling.
Sulingo, Global News.
Our Shelby Clark chatted with Floyd Fable about the Indigenous Peoples Festival.
Joining us today is Floyd Fable, Director of Miyawata Culture Incorporated. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm very good. So the Poundmaker Cree Nation is holding their 4th Indigenous Peoples Festival this August. With the pandemic going on, what do you plan to do differently than previous years?
Well, this year, everything is online. And it will premiere August 6th and run until the 8th. So that's the main difference, is just to follow pandemic protocols and safety of all our audience members.
And what exactly is all involved in this festival that you did in previous years?
This year, it's actually, this is our more complete version of our festival. It's bigger than in previous years. We have more guests, more presenters, and it's all online. We have people from South Dakota. We have Lakota Chief Arval Looking Horse, who is a very well-known spiritual leader. You could the equivalent would be, he would be sort of like the Dalai Lama, he's internationally renowned. So he did a specific interview and presentation for us, as well as Dave Korshen, a well-known traditionalist. So they're using words and stories to educate the world and people at large. As well, we have Sami theater director Osa Sima, Algonquin performance artist Emily Monet, Mohawk scholar Kahente Horn Miller, and so on. There's and as well as our performance, an adaptation of Uncle Vanya by Anton Chekhov, but most of it is coming from Poland. So it's uploaded scenes and imagery from Poland, where most of my collaborators live. And it's directed by Ivona Wozniak. And so that will be presented in our festival from Poland, and also from our own footage shot here on Pondmaker. So that's what makes it most interesting, is it's a global festival, more so than in previous years, which was very local and live.
And in the previous years, has the festival had lots of residents in the past to come and support?
Yes, it had. It was the festival was in fact instrumental in the exoneration of Chief Pondmaker in 2019. As when we began this festival in 2017, that's when we began to talk about the exoneration. And we had public sessions, people talking, telling stories of their grandparents, great-grandparents, and their remembrances. And there was a lot of emotions in that time. And this led to publicity for the exoneration of Chief Pondmaker, and eventually led to the formal exoneration in 2019. So it created a lot of resonance in our community, if not this country.
And for this year, do you expect this year to have more support since it's going to be online?
Yes, I believe we will have more support because the festival has changed its focus, that it's now an intercultural event. The source is Indigenous in this community. Some of the footage is shot right in our own Indigenous cultural stage here at the lake. But from this cultural specificity, we are inviting collaborators that are not Indigenous. So it becomes global, because we need to go beyond the colonial definitions of identity. So in a way, ours is truly post-colonial, and identity is defined by techniques and methods grounded in this continent, but open to all peoples.
Perfect. Well, I think it sounds like it's going to be amazing as always, even though you had to adjust to going online. So thank you so much for joining us today, Floyd.
Thank you for taking the time and interest, and everybody is welcome.
All right, taking one last look here at your 7-day forecast. 25 degrees for Thursday, 25 on Friday, possibility of thunder showers overnight, heading into tomorrow, Friday as well, some showers as well. Even on Saturday, we could see some showers as well with that high of 18. 23 on Sunday, 26 with clear skies on Monday, 29 on Tuesday with some cloud coverage, and a sun and cloud mix for Wednesday at 27.